Good morning, YouTube, BookTube. This is Johnny. Thought I'd make a video. My wife left this morning here in Southwest Michigan. It is February the 15th, 2024. It is 9:29 in the morning inside the hermit hut. And we had snow. Yesterday it was beautiful outside. It was sunny, blue sky. And my wife and I, we went to Grand Haven, which is north of us, about 25 minutes. We went to Grand Haven to go to Cheap Stacks, which is a used bookstore inside their public library there in Grand Haven. It's called Lutt District Library, L-O-U-T-I-T, District Library, Loltit, and they have inside the library there, it's a big library, they have in the lower level a used bookstore, Cheap Stacks, and I've mentioned that over the years of making videos that we go there at least maybe twice or once a year, and we buy used books. And when my wife wanted to go, first of all, because there is a lady who goes to her church who she wanted to visit there in Grand Haven, so she dropped me off at the library and see if it was open, and it was open, and so she left to go visit the lady, and I stayed and looked through the used books. What I do when I go to Cheap Stacks there in Grand Haven, I look for things that I collect, writers, subject matter, like, well, first, biographies, and then I look at fiction, and then I look at travel, politics, world history, American history, classics, and spirituality. I didn't really see much poetry or art history, art books. I didn't really look that hard, but I did wind up buying, I think, at least 25 books, and stuff that I collect, writers and biographies. And we didn't go, usually when we go to Grand Haven, after we go to Cheap Stacks, we go to Goodwill there in Grand Haven, but we decided just to head back to Holland, and we stopped for lunch, and then we came home. But I'm not going to show those books today. I'm not going to show the Cheap Stack used book haul, but I'm just going to, well, one of the books that I didn't spot when we were at Cheap Stacks, but my wife saw it. She was looking, my wife buys Christian books to give away, so she was looking at the Christian books, and I don't, when I look through Christian used books, I don't really see anything that I would interest me. A lot of it is liberal, or it's just nothing worth reading. But my wife has more pietistic taste, Christian pietism, and there are some books that are not poison. So, but anyway, my wife spotted this book, which I was totally surprised. She said, "Look at this," and it was a copy of Looking Unto Jesus. And I've shown this book to you over the years as one of my favorite all-time Christian books, and there was a copy of it there, which totally surprised me because it's out of print. It was published in 1986 by Sprinkle Publications in Harrisburg, Virginia, and it hasn't been reprinted. I told you that last year I wanted a second copy, and I looked around the country, and I knew about a strict Baptist book distributor in Montana And I looked at their site and I found this. They had one copy. And this is a copy I bought last year, Looking Unto Jesus by Isaac Ambrose. This is, but I had bought when we lived in Houston, when I was doing my ministerial internship. I had read Looking Unto Jesus many years ago. I had checked it out of the Western Theological Seminary here in Holland, Michigan. They had a 17th century edition of Looking Into Jesus. Way back in those days, it was almost like 40 years ago. They kept their old books that you could check out and read, but now due to thievery, they locked all those books up in the top floor, and you have to get permission to look at them. But way back then, I had checked out Looking Into Jesus by Isaac Ambrose in the 17th century English, and I read the whole thing. And then when we were in Houston, Texas, I found out from somebody who was into the old writers that this guy, Spinkles, was going to reprint it. It's been reprinted many times over the years, but not in the 20th century. The edition he used, Sprinkle, was a 19th century edition in 1855. The Presbyterians, they reprinted it, and this is the copy that he used, Looking Unto Jesus. So yeah, so now I have 3 copies of Looking Unto Jesus. Well, you know, hey, this is different. Wait a minute. Oh, I think they're all the same. Looking Unto Jesus. So I was kind of thrilled because it was only $1. It was only $1. And so now I have 3 copies. Now this copy, this one is the original one I bought when we lived in Houston, Texas back in the 80s. And it has my stamp in it. See my stamp? From the Library of John Keene. I had a book, a rubber stamp years ago, and I'd stamp books. Now I don't, see, it's called Looking Unto Jesus, a view of the everlasting gospel, or the soul eyeing of Jesus as carrying on the great work of man's salvation from first to last, by Isaac Ambrose, minister of the gospel. And this was first published, like I said, in the 17th century. And this was, these was all published in like 1986. I think that was, 1986. So this is the one I originally had, and I've read this. You can read. It goes through the whole life and ministry. Well, it goes into the life of Jesus. It goes into eternity first, and the covenant redemption, and then it goes through. Well, you have to look at it. You have to look at it. It's carrying on the great work of man's salvation from first to last. So, you have to. It's on. And one thing else about Looking Into Jesus, it's online. If you type in Looking Into Jesus by Isaac Ambrose in Google search, you'll find an online copy of it. So now I have 3. This is the one I told you about I got from Montana. And this is the one I keep in my study along. And I mentioned that this was a fellow named Tom Schwanda did a doctorate dissertation on Isaac Ambrose. He has The Contemplative Biography of Isaac Ambrose. Let's see, he has this. This is a really wonderful book. It's called Soul Recreation, the Contemplative-Mystical Piety of Puritanism. I keep these together, and this is one of my favorite books on contemplative mystical piety of Puritanism. And that's what looking into Jesus is. It's a contemplative manual. What Isaac Ambrose, in his own life, every month, or every year, about every month, a month out every year, Isaac Ambrose would go off and he'd spend a month in prayer and fasting and contemplation. And that was part of his spiritual disciplines. And out of that contemplative life, he wrote Looking into Jesus. And it's kind of like, and that's why I got it out, because I mentioned to you in my other video, just my recent video, I'm kind of out of it. I can't really get, it's kind of like I have these periods in my reading life that I'm kind of clogged. because I read a lot of books. I read, I've been reading through Puritan reprints, at least 10. I read Protestant Reformation theology, New Testament theology, and then I've been reading books on Nietzsche and reading literary fiction, essays, art history, and after a while my brain gets kind of stuffed and I have to let it rest for a while. But what I do is I try to find books that I can read to contemplate. And so so I figured that I would read Looking into Jesus. I told you I was reading General Directions for Walking Comfortably with God by Robert Bolton. I read that yesterday. Yesterday I had my eye doctor appointment in the mornings right at 8 o'clock, and I read that when I was waiting to have my eyes examined. And then when we got back yesterday from my eye appointment, my wife and I said, well, it's Valentine's Day. My wife, we always give Valentine's Day cards. And I thought we went out for breakfast. First we went out for breakfast when I came back from my eye appointment. And then after breakfast at a local restaurant, we drove to Grand Haven. And my wife dropped me off at the library. And then she went and visited this lady. And she came back as I was looking through Cheap Stacks used books. A lot of the books in Cheap Stacks are library withdrawals. They're not so much donations. I mean, there are some donations, but a lot of it, they take books out of circulation. And so, like I said, when I'm at Cheap Stacks, I look for biographies. And one of the biographies, I'm not going to show you all the books that I got at Cheap Stacks because I'm not really in the mood. But I did find another biography, a philosophical, was called Fredrich Nietzsche, a philosophical biography by Julian Young. And this is yesterday when I kind of start reading this. So that's kind of thing that you find at Cheap Stacks. And, I've been reading other books by Nietzsche. I've shown you this. How to Read Like a Parasite. Why the Left Got High on Nietzsche by Daniel Tutt. And then I've been reading Nietzsche, The Aristocratic Rebel by Domenico Losurdo, translated by Gregor Benton. So I found another book to add to my Nietzsche collection. So I was reading this yesterday. But also, just to give an example of the kind of books that one of the books I bought at Cheap Stacks was this one, Peter Brown's Through the Eye of a Needle, Wealth, the Fall of Rome and the Making of Christianity in the West from 350 to 550 AD. Peter Brown is really famous for his biography on St. Augustine, and he's written books that include The World of Late Antiquity, The Rise of Western Christendom, and Augustine of Hippo. So I was really pleased to find this because many years ago I read his biography on St. Augustine, which I really enjoyed reading, and it's always kind of a treat to find, see at the library withdrawal. So it's always kind of a treat to find a good academic work on church history, early Christianity, because when I was in seminary, I got a Master's of Divinity in theology and in church history. And when I was in Bible college, I got a bachelor's degree in missions and in Christian education. So that's what my degrees are in. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree, a master's in systematic theology and church history, and then I have a bachelor's degree in Christian missions, because my initial purpose in going to Bible college was to be a missionary, but then I realized after taking missionary classes that I wasn't really had the personality to be a missionary, so I switched to being a pastor or a minister. And that, of course, that never worked out either. So now I'm just a 71-year-old hermit who reads Puritan spirituality, reads church history, reads books about Nietzsche, drinks coffee, writes in his diary. This morning I'm on page 141 for the year 2024. Yeah, I got a lot of books. I got some books. I found a Harry Crews book called Celebrations, which I never have seen Harry Crews. And this morning I was kind of curious. Recently, Penguin reprinted 2 of Harry Crews' books. I've shown those in the past. And then they came out last year, Harry Crews. And then this morning, I was kind of curious if Penguin was planning to reprint, or reissue writings of Harry Crews, and they're going to come out with another one in July of 2024, another book by Harry Crews. Harry Crews was a Southern writer who writes Southern kind of Gothic. I know what they all take place in the South. Georgia is one of my favorite Southern writers, Harry Crews. So I found a library withdrawal of Harry Crews' Celebration, which was a find. I found other books that were very interesting that I will show on future videos. So yeah, today it is a Thursday morning. It is February the 15th. We're in the middle of the month. It's 9:47. It's snowing outside. It's kind of slush. It's not going to stick around, the snow. I'm sure it'll melt. And reading Isaac Ambrose. I got 3 copies now of Isaac Ambrose, Looking Unto Jesus. And I really recommend this by Tom Schwanda, Soul Recreation, the Contemplative-Mystical Piety of Puritanism. Yeah, and I start looking at Nietzsche, a philosophical biography by Julian. I have other biographies on Nietzsche down in the lower level in my Nietzsche collection. Drinking coffee, just trying to get through the day. Yesterday was very kind of exhausting for me because I went to the eye doctor 8 o'clock, came home. My wife and I, we went out for breakfast. And then we drove to Grand Haven. And then we went, after Grand Haven, on the way home, we stopped and had lunch at a hamburger place. I love hamburgers. And to me, the perfect meal for me is a hamburger, French fries, and a chocolate malt. And that's kind of my favorite. I like breakfast, but I'm not really into dinner. I'm not really a dinner person. I like hamburgers, and I like breakfast, like sausage and eggs and pancakes and things like that. But anyway, this is going on 20 minutes. I just thought I'd stop by and ramble, tell you about finding another copy of Looking into Jesus, classic Puritan work by Isaac Ambrose. Found another biography on Fredrich Nietzsche. Found at Cheap Stacks also a good book on church history, early Christianity, ancient Christianity, through the eye of a needle, Wealth, the Fall of Rome and the Making of Christianity in the West, 350 to 550 AD by Peter Brown. Reading in my diary and just letting my brain settle. So I hope you're having a good reading week. Thank you for the comments. Do pray you're all doing well. And I'll sign off, and until next time, bye. Yeah, we also this morning, my wife and I are still reading through the Gospel of Mark. We're coming to the end. We're heading towards Easter or Resurrection Sunday. We're reading still the Valley of Vision for devotions. So yeah, yesterday was Ash Wednesday. So we're in the season of Lent. So it's a good time to look unto Jesus in the season of Lent as we head towards Resurrection Sunday. Keep our eyes on Jesus. So yeah, I'll sign off, and until next time, bye.